everybody, and hello. Thank you for having me. We're all, the mic has to be closer to me, right? I'm going to hold it. Is that okay? Can I hold it, Rabbi? Yeah. We're all members of the Chabad family. Hello, everybody. Hello. We're all members of the Chabad family. Chabad obviously means an enormous amount to each of us, to all of us. And at the heart of Chabad is the Rebbe. And sometimes it's difficult to fathom the degree of his influence and the degree to which he is the source of the little details, of every little detail, of how Chabad lives and is and breathes. But there's another very important factor which is particularly poignant today. And that is how personal it is. I mean, Rabbi Zappo and I are old people at this point, and Rabbi Risky and Rabbi Levine. Our children are the next generation. Our children either knew the Rebbe as little children or didn't know the Rebbe at all. And explain it how you wish, don't explain it at all. Their relationship with the Rebbe is not just meaningful and deep, but also very personal. Personal means individual, him and me and nobody else. Our relationship with the Rebbe is very personal. It's hard to understand unless you experienced it. It's really hard to understand unless you experienced it. Everybody talks about the Rebbe's leadership, the Rebbe's great leadership, the Rebbe's vision, the Rebbe's intelligence, the Rebbe's creativity, thinking outside the box, going where nobody else went. But there are other dimensions to the Rebbe. And one of them is, he was an exceedingly holy man. In his personal life, he was completely removed from anything material. The way he lived his life. The man didn't eat, he fasted, he didn't sleep. His personal life was extremely holy, extraordinarily holy. And he was, as this video so incredibly well demonstrated, he was so deeply connected to us. He wasn't a cosmic man who saw us as the cosmos. He was a father. His relationship with each of us was extremely personal, extremely individual. And we knew it. We knew it. Not just he knew it, we feel a very personal love from the Rebbe. I'm going to tell you something hysterical. Okay, I really don't care if you believe me, but this actually happened in the last 2 weeks. Okay, I'm doing some work in my home, and I had a bit of a difference with my neighbor, okay? The Rebbe came to my contractor in a dream to tell him that my neighbor was right. A true story. Anyway, the contractor calls me, he says, the Rebbe told me to tell you my neighbor's right. So of course I said, okay. A week later, the Rebbe came again. Didn't say a word. Just let him know that he was happy that he took his advice. This just happened. 2026. It's a current story. I don't know if I should tell this story, but I can't get over how fortunate I feel. He didn't come to me. He went to somebody else. It's always that way with me. I don't know your relationship with the Rebbe. I really don't. And I hope and I wish that this is not just respect for a great man, reverence for a great man, appreciation for a great man, but a relationship. Because the Rebbe is a tzaddik, a very big tzaddik, an incredibly big tzaddik. Just a little story, a small little story, a story about small. The previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, whose name I carry, his name was Yossi Yitzchak. He was born in 1880 and he passed away in 1950. He was about 6 or 7. His father, whose name was Rabbi Shalom Doiber, was already then the leader of Chabad, because his father, the fourth Chabad Rebbe, had passed away very young, And he was probably 25. He was a very young man. He became a Rebbe at a very early age. And he had one child. He had an only child, Yossi, his only son, who would become his successor. And his little son was in shul. Everybody had gone home to eat Shabbos lunch. And his father was alone in shul, and he was praying. And he got to the Shema. And he started to cry. So it bothered him. Why is my father crying? So he went to his mother and said to his mother, Mama, Daddy is sitting in shul. There's nobody else in shul. Everybody has gone home. And he's crying. Why is Daddy crying? So his mother said, Geh frag Vetter Zalman. Go ask your uncle Zalman. Zalman was the older brother of the fifth Rebbe. So he went to his uncle Zalman. His uncle Zalman said, because when your father went to school, he didn't pick up the Hebrew well. He can't read. So when he prays and he stumbles on the words, he cries out of frustration because he can't read the Hebrew. Now, the previous Rebbe knew that that wasn't the truth, that there had to be a better reason why his father was crying. So he ran back to his mother and says, Vetter Zalman sagt, Uncle Zalman says that Daddy's crying because he can't read Hebrew. And she says, Geh to the Bubba. Go ask your grandmother, who was the wife of the fourth Rebbe. So she went to his Bubba, Rebbe Tzanifke, and he said, Tat is this the shul event? My father is sitting in shul and crying. Why is he crying? So the Rebbe Tzanifke said to her grandson, I'm going to say it in Yiddish. Past 50, you're allowed to cry. It doesn't mean anything anymore. Weil dein Tate is nicht wie alle Tates. Dein Tate is a tzaddik. Und wenn dein Tate davent, verbindet sich mit Nebischten. He says, because your father is not like most fathers. Your father is a tzaddik. He's a holy man. He was 25. He was very young. And when he prays, he really connects to God. So there's emotion, there's tears. The Rebbe is a very big tzaddik. You know, big tzaddikim are far removed. And the bigger they are, the further removed. But there's an incredible irony that the further away they are, the lower is the bottom of their arc. The greater is the reach of the bottom of their sphere. And there's nobody like the Rebbe. There's nobody like the Rebbe in terms of how holy he was, and how he related, and he connected, and he loved, and he cried, as this individual tells the story, for everybody. For everybody. The Rebbe was so busy. My uncle was one of his secretaries. He received, listen to this, 400 letters a day. And he opened and read every one himself. The secretaries didn't read his mail. They sent out the answers if and when there were answers. He opened up every piece of mail himself. And when he had time for anything else, and he had many other things to do. And when we get together on this day, and we commemorate this event, this yahrzeit, Gimmel Tammuz, it's the first thing. This is very personal. This isn't a holy man. This is somebody who's very close to us. I feel extremely close to him. My children, and now my grandchildren feel in a very real way attached to him and close to him. It's not because we're special, it's because he's special. His reach extends beyond any kind of limitations, including the limitation of the fact that we're not able to see him physically. And I bless each of us, all of us, each of you, each of us, that not just today but always, but maybe this could be the trigger to consider the idea, as people who are involved in the family of Chabad, that part of our relationship with the Rebbe is a personal one. It's not only a religious one, it's not only a collective and a communal one, it's me and him. I write to him, he answers me, he doesn't answer me, I take the letters to the Ohel, to the cemetery, I leave them there. This is tzaddikim, these are holy people. Holy people have different rules. And we don't understand. But we don't only believe. We don't only believe. We see, we feel, we experience, we celebrate. And this is our schus. This is good for us. It'll make us better. It'll make us closer to him, and make us closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. and make us a lot closer to our best self, to the person that we can be and that we must be and that we should be. I was talking to you about the Rebbe's mail. The Rebbe opened 400 pieces of mail a day. It's a lot of mail. It takes a lot of time. So somebody who worked with the Rebbe bought the Rebbe, this is the 1970s, it's 50 years ago. He bought the Rebbe an electronic mail envelope opener. It was a machine. You fed the envelope, it sliced the top, and it was easy to take out. So he brought it into the secretariat of the Rebbe, and he says, I bought this machine for the Rebbe, that the Rebbe can save a little time. Rabbi Groner, the Rebbe's secretary, who knew the Rebbe well, said, the Rebbe's not going to use that. He says, listen, I bought it and I paid for it. Offer it to him. He offered it to the Rebbe, and of course, there was never an answer. The Rebbe didn't say thank you or no thank you. That was the end of the story. So he waited a bit, and he came back to the secretary. Well, what happened? He says, the Rebbe said it makes too much noise. So he went and spent over $1,000 then to buy an envelope opener with a muffler, a silent envelope opener. And he was a young fellow with not a lot of money. I know him. He told me the story. And it was a huge exertion financially for him. He just wanted to make the Rebbe a little bit easier. And he brought it into 770, and he came to Rabbi Groner. Okay, this one is silent. And Rabbi Groner says, Zalman, the Rebbe is not going to use it. He says, what do you got to lose? I bought it and I paid for deliver it. Anyway, nothing happened. There was no response. He waited a bit. He came to Rabbi Groner and says, well, he said, the Rebbe doesn't want to use it. He said, why not? Listen to this. The Rebbe said to him as follows. When people send me letters, they seal the envelope. So da azelche was verziegeln mit ein bisschen Wasser. So da azelche was verziegeln mit ein bisschen Speiacht. Und so da azelche was verziegeln mit ein Träger. Und das kann eine Maschine nicht aufhaben. There are those who seal their letter with a little bit of water. There are those who seal their letter with a little bit of saliva. And there are those who seal their envelope with a tear. And the machine doesn't pick that up. I have to open the mail myself. I don't need to tell you that we're living in a modern age. Part of the reality of our modern age isn't only the modernity itself, the evolution of technology in the last 120 years, or whatever date you want to begin with, is incredible. But part of the evolution of technology is the rapidity, is the speed at which it's happening. Technology is changing so fast, you simply do not have an opportunity to acclimate to one condition in technology before the new one is here. So the machines are moving faster than us, much faster than we can. Remember the record player? Once upon a time, there used to be record players. People used record players for 100 years. After a while, you got used to the record player, And then there was a radio, and then there was a television. These fellows, they lasted, each one of them came along at a certain time, and you had 20, 30, 40, 50 years to get used to the machines. And at some point, it became our new reality. Today, technology changes. Now, I'm fine. Okay, I appreciate it. I'll tell your brother, and he's going to say, who cares? I'm just saying that you should know that I know your brother. Today, the technology moves so rapidly. The consequence of this is we're all off balance as human beings. To keep up with the machines that are such a part of our daily life, we don't have a chance to integrate the realities that we deal with. And those of us who are adults may have forgotten how much more acute and difficult it is for kids. Children are young. Children don't have experience. Children don't have a barometer. They don't have a measure of what's normal and what's crazy. Their measure of what's normal and crazy are their experiences. And when they're living with these kinds of changes, they think that constant change is life, and it's not. And it makes living very difficult. And one of the one of the prices that we pay for all this noise, for all this upheaval in our lives, is our definition of normal, really. Our definition of normal it doesn't exist, really. As human beings, on a psychological level, we don't get a chance to be normal because there's always something else that's taking away our normal. And ideally, in a perfect world or a perfect person, we have the right filters, we have the right self-control or self-management to establish our own normal. And as I tell my students all the time, if your machine is not a slave to you, you're a slave to your machine. To manage our lives in the kind of way that it doesn't steal our normal. It doesn't steal our calm. It doesn't steal our inner peace. It doesn't steal the certainty of our self-identity. And what I'm describing is extremely serious, and I know it, and I'm sure everybody in this room appreciates just how incredibly difficult it is to know who you are, minus the machines. To know the you that doesn't change from the moment you were born until the last minute of your life, your long, healthy, successful, blessed, happy life. But we must do that if we're going to be human beings. The Rebbe was born before the First World War. The Rebbe lived through the 2 world wars. And he became the shepherd of the Jewish people. He became the Rebbe of Lubavitch, and to a very great extent the Rebbe of the whole Jewish world, right after the Holocaust. There are so many ways, there are so many things that you can identify the Rebbe by. But one of the things that is extremely sensitive and profound and beautiful is the Rebbe represents normal. The Rebbe was an extremely normal man. It's funny, but there's nothing funny about it. The Rebbe was such a genius, such an incredible mind. He was so extremely busy. He valued every microsecond, and he was never in a rush. He was never in a rush. He was extremely normal, and he gave, I believe you could say, he gave normal to people. He gave normal. Meeting the Rebbe was an extremely powerful experience. It was a bit overwhelming. It was very intimidating. But he gave you a normal. He gave you a normal. There's a woman who still lives in Morocco, in Tunis, in North Africa. Not a fun place to live. She's a shliach of the Rebbe from decades ago. Her name is Mrs. Pinson. Her husband has now passed away, and she lives on. I think she's still alive. She's passed away, pardon me. I met her, she came to one of my classes. Interesting lady. Tunisia is a dangerous country. There are not many Arab countries that Jews live in significant numbers. Morocco has Jews and Tunisia has Jews. And there was a lot of fear. A lot of people left. There was a lot of fear, a lot of intimidation. There was a lot of government-sanctioned killings, actually. She was visiting the Rebbe. And she was in the Rebbe's room. And she says to the Rebbe, Rebbe, I live in Tunisia. I'm very happy to live in Tunisia as your representative. But in this room, I feel so peaceful. In this room, I feel so calm. I feel so at peace with everything, with myself. I want to take that back with me to Tunisia. I want to take that along with me, that where I go, in the tumultuous world out there, I should carry this peace with me. And the Rebbe, in typical Rebbe fashion, said to her, why for you? For everybody. And that was the end of that. She says for years, women would say to her, Mrs. Pinson, how come when we're around you, we are so calm? And she would say, in good Chabad Hasidic tradition, say, the Rebbe's keches, what you're feeling is the blessing that Rebbe gave me for inner peace. And it's real. A woman that I knew said to me, you waited outside the door to meet the Rebbe in person. You waited outside the door to go into the Rebbe and meet with him. It was called Yechidas, so it's private meetings. The Rebbe met thousands of people for 25 years on a very consistent basis, and then for a few more years a little bit less consistently. At some point, because of physical reasons, the Rebbe discontinued these private meetings. And she says, you're standing outside the Rebbe's door and you're a nervous wreck. You're so apprehensive, you feel so unworthy. She said to me, a woman that I knew said to me, I'm saying to myself, I'm going to walk into the Rebbe, I'm not going to hear a word he says, and I'm certainly not going to remember anything. She was so apprehensive, she was hyperventilating, she was so emotional. She says, you step across the threshold of the door, and then you're at peace. You walk into the actual room where the Rebbe is sitting at his desk with his fedora creating the little shadow of the top of his face that he's so famous for, and you feel peace. And all of a sudden you're clear, you're lucid, you're completely present. The Rebbe had that effect on people. He gave them inner peace. He gave them a normal, which in our times is something I wish we still dream about, we wish for. And it's an incredible gift that the Rebbe gave and gives. And it's not only the spirituality of it, it's the awareness of a normal, the awareness that there is a normal, and that I want a normal. My home is a normal place, my relationships are normal, my relationship with my husband, my relationship with my wife, my relationship with my children is consistent and stable and normal. The world makes this difficult today. All because we have such good toys. It's so interesting. Machines are supposed to help us, but machines are making it very, very hard for us to be helped because there's just so many of them. Which leads to another point that I want to share with you. The Rebbe gave us God. The Rebbe gave us God, gives us God. Now, nobody gives anybody God. God is the creator of everything. And we're all here because of God. What I mean when I say the Rebbe gave us God, the Rebbe gave us the God priority. To the Rebbe, who was one of the smartest people in the world, God was so simple. God was so certain. He was so smart that he wasn't unsure. You understand? He wasn't so smart that he had doubt. Those are the people less smart than he was. He was even smarter than those people. And he was so certain about God that it was simple. And he gave that simple to each one of us. The Rebbe was a Rebbe. He was a Rebbe. He was a shepherd. He was a father. He was an intimate of so many of us. He was also a great scholar. He was a great scholar. And the Rebbe would talk for hours. If you've ever followed, the Rebbe's Farbrengen would go on for 8 hours sometimes, maybe longer in the earlier years. The Rebbe cut them shorter because of his age and because of his health. But the Rebbe would bring for hours. And in one Farbrengen, the Rebbe would go from topic to topic to topic. And some of his topics were extremely scholarly. And then there were topics that were extremely human. And the scholarly stuff, he did quick, relatively speaking. The human stuff, he would repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat because he wasn't giving information. He was touching hearts. He was touching hearts. And when the Rebbe talked, he talked in the kind of way that he was branding it into your soul. He wasn't telling you, he was giving you. And the Rebbe had expressions that he would repeat constantly, just say them again and again and again and again. And he was repeating them not because we didn't know them. He was repeating them because he wanted to personalize them for us, to us, in us. And one of those expressions was Boirei Olam Umanhiga. It's Hebrew. Boirei Olam Umanhiga means the creator of the world and its governor. God Almighty is the creator and the governor. What do they say? I don't know what the statistics are today, but most Americans believe in God. So, you have to have a relationship with God. Knowing that there's a God, believing in God is academic, it's intellectual, it's scholarly. Having a relationship with God, I'm not going to call that religious. I'm going to call that normal. I'm going to call that peaceful. I'm going to call that wholesome. And the Rebbe gave us God in a very intimate, in a very real way. He wanted Hashem, God Almighty, to be real for us. Like I'm talking to you, we talk to God. An intimate, a personal relationship with Hashem. I've been around, what can I tell you? I mean, I'm not around a lot of other people, but I've been around, and I met all kinds of people. And I know so many people who, because of their mind, because of their brain, have a barrier between themselves and God. Many people just can't get past the problems, the questions, the difficulties, the uncertainties. And maybe the questions have answers. Maybe the questions don't have answers. This I can guarantee you. There's always going to be more questions. There's never going to be an end to questions. It's the nature of learning. Any person who's a serious learner knows that part of learning is leaving questions unanswered. When you're 16, you can't do that. But when you're 60, you can. And even when you're 40. You don't have to, you can sleep. You can sleep. Because when you can answer this question, it's not like when you answer the question, the world is perfect. We're never going to know everything. It's impossible. There's always going to be questions. You put the questions down and you talk to the creator of the world like a son speaks to his father. The Rebbe gave us that God that makes it all so normal, it makes it all so peaceful. Joseph Talushkin, so gesund sein, in his book, the Rebbe has a story, and every one of his stories is sourced, so you can look it up. Where the Rebbe met a man who was secular, very smart guy, in a yechidus, in a private meeting, academic of some type, I don't know, mathematician, a physicist, but a really, really smart guy. And he spoke to the Rebbe. And when you talk to the Rebbe, he was overwhelmed by his knowledge. But what was so interesting about the Rebbe was, if you didn't know something, you didn't even know that he knew it. You only knew of the Rebbe what the Rebbe knew of you. He had that magical ability to show you the piece of himself which was your mirror. You never felt talked down to. It's incredible. But the smart guys, the really intelligent people, would meet a man who was their match and more in every field. And they'd be overwhelmed by this man's intellect. You know, the day before the Rebbe became a Rebbe, the day before the Rebbe took the job, he was sitting with a friend of his, an academic. And he says to this fellow, you know what's going to happen tomorrow? I'm going to take a job as a Rebbe, and you and I will never be able to talk again, because I'm not going to have the time. So he says to the Rebbe, don't do it. Don't do it. What do you need it for? You're a scholar. You can speak to the smartest people in the world. You waste your time with Bubbis and with Zaydis, or with Yingalach, or with Bedelach, or with Tatas, or with Mamas, but that's what it ever is. That's the job. That's the job. So this man says to the Rebbe, Rabbi, how could anybody be as intelligent as you and believe in God the way you do? How could anybody be as smart as you are, know as much as you are, and have no difficulty with the Creator? And not just the Creator, the Master of the world, the Governor of the world, the intimate in our lives. And the Rebbe told him a wonderful thing. It's a different skill set. It's a different skill set. One of the great mistakes that the modern world has made is to assume that faith is the end of knowledge, that faith comes from research, that faith comes from discovery, that faith comes from our mind. Now you got to use your mind. If you don't use your mind, you're not a human being. But you have to be smart enough to know that not everything you have to understand. Faith comes from the neshama. Faith comes from the soul. Faith comes from a very, very different place than the whole machine that questions and that doubts and that probes and that challenges and that searches. It's a very important part of us. It's a very important part of us. The mind is exceedingly important. But the neshama, that's a part of our normal. That's a part of our peace. And that's a part of our God. And this is the God that Rebbe wanted to give us in this incredibly chaotic world. The Rebbe spoke to children, little kids. You can watch the films. The Rebbe's talking to the kids as if he's talking to the biggest Hasidim. And the kids are literally playing. Some of them are doodling, supposedly writing what he's saying. Others are simply bored. One or two are trying to listen. And the Rebbe's talking to them like a Rebbe from the mountaintop. That's how he always was. The Rebbe never, certainly not in public, came down from that place of distance. And he would say to the children over and over and over again, the creator of the world and its master and its governor. He was branding into the hearts and the souls of little children The reality of God. The reality of God. Not the question and the answer, the reality. Faith, emunah. It's so important. It's not only important religiously. It's important psychologically. You know, one of the weird things about the crazy world which we live today, that I think, now of course you are welcome to disagree, that's what we're all about, but it's never made more sense to be religious than right now. Because the world's gone nuts. I mean, completely spun out. And religion creates an equilibrium. There's a center. You know, things don't always, not everything changes all the time. And at the base, at the heart, at the soul of religion is our relationship with God. And the Rebbe gave God to the Jewish people. And if I may say so, he gave the Jewish people to God. The Rebbe gave God to the Jewish people. And he gave the Jewish people to God. The Rebbe lived in very difficult times. But he had technological advances. You know, the Rebbe lived in the post-Holocaust world. You must understand, I was born in 1965. My father was born in 1938. My father was born in Moscow, Russia. My father remembers mortars hitting the house in which he lived, Nazi mortars, cannons from, 10, 20 miles out of Moscow that the Nazis were shooting, bombarded. They never took Moscow. My father remembers a bomb hitting the house in which he lived and running off to Siberia. My father's life, my father was gesund, he's living be well. It's not been an easy life. It's a long life, thank God, but it's been very tumultuous. Imagine a person from that generation and the Rebbe, and multiply that times thousands and thousands and thousands of people who came to the Rebbe one at a time. And they met the Rebbe in his room. And he found a way to heal them. He found a way to their soul. He found a way to give them permission to believe. He found a way to give them permission not to survive, but to actually live. He had that magical ability. There are many stories. I'm just going to mention one. The Rebbe had a very deep impact on Elie Wiesel, an incredibly personal and deep impact on Elie Wiesel. And the Rebbe and him talked a lot. He was a very smart guy. Elie Wiesel was brilliant. He was an incredibly intelligent person, obviously extremely successful, extremely important in the greater world. And the Rebbe was a part of his inner world. And he said to the Rebbe once, he had a debate with the Rebbe. He wouldn't get married. He didn't want to have children. He felt that the cruelest thing any Jew could do is bring a Jewish child into the world. And he believed it on principle. And the Rebbe said to him, I'm sure gently but firmly, do you understand that you're continuing Hitler's work? And the Rebbe said, you have to get married. And you have to have a normal life. So he said to the Rebbe, how? How can you afford the luxury of normal after what we went through? How is it justified? How is it correct for me to allow myself to live a normal life? And the Rebbe said, because that's how you defeat Hitler. That's how we win. And the Rebbe debated him and debated him and debated him, and he got married. He listened to the Rebbe, he got married, he had a son, by the Rebbe's incredible encouragement. But one of the wonderful little anecdotes that he tells about his relationship with the Rebbe was he argued with the Rebbe. How could the Rebbe look forward? Actually, the Rebbe from the beginning was one of the few rabbis who looked forward. Everybody was looking back. Everybody was looking back. And when you look back, you can't live. When you look back, you see terror. The Rebbe lost a brother in the Holocaust. The Rebbe lost many family members. It wasn't that the Rebbe was removed from the Holocaust, but the Rebbe understood what the Jewish people needed. He did not look back. He looked only forward. And Elie Wiesel said to the Rebbe, how can, you're not allowed to look forward. And the Rebbe says, you must. And they argued and they argued and they argued. And at one point in their conversations, he said to the Rebbe, Elie Wiesel said to the Rebbe, I would like you to teach me to cry. And the Rebbe said to him, I will teach you to sing. He said, I want the Rebbe to teach me how to cry, which for a survivor is not easy. By the way, this fellow, Goldschmidt, who said I wasn't much of a crybaby, you saw that? He was in the massacre in Hever in 1929. His parents were murdered. He was a 2-year-old in a closet. So now you understand why this man didn't cry. He didn't have parents. And now you understand how poignant that little exchange that he had with the Rebbe, where the Rebbe took the place of his father and gave him practical advice. And he starts to cry and says, Rebbe, why do you love me so much? And the Rebbe says to him, because you're my son. And the Rebbe had this relationship with so many people. And the Rebbe figured out how to dial our number. The Rebbe figured out how to reach people who were very beautiful, extremely beautiful, but very broken, very hurt, very confused. And what's odd, what's strange, is we're their grandchildren, maybe even their great-grandchildren, but we're still confused. It's still so hard to find normal in this world of plenty. Really, there's never been a richer country in the history of mankind than the United States of America. And frankly, there's never been a kinder country in the history of the world than the United States of America. And maybe there hasn't been a more confused country. Now, how does that work? How does that work? Because we got lost. We lost the I. We lost ourselves. And the Rebbe taught us, if you want to find your I, you need to find God. You need to find faith. You need to find normal. You need to find peace. And the Rebbe figured out how to dial our number. And his approach was very simple. No speeches. No speeches. No speeches. A good deed, a mitzvah, one at a time. It's so simplistic on the surface, but so incredibly effective and so unbelievably magical and so unbelievably real. You know, there are many Jews in the world today who are Orthodox, who were not raised Orthodox, or their parents not raised Orthodox. And by no means are they all Chabad. By no means are they all Chabad. But many of them will tell you, you know, the first encounter I had with Judaism was a boy on the sidewalk and tefillin. Or a girl on the boardwalk and Shabbos candles. A seed was planted. It could take 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. That seed germinates and it grows and it becomes a living thing. And it wakes up the neshama. The Rebbe didn't give people speeches. He never told anybody they were no good. Never. Never told anybody they were no good. There's no point. There really isn't a point. Is there any point in telling somebody that they're bad? I'm asking you a question. You are a bad person. Thank you very much. Well, I'll be sure not to disappoint you. Right? In general, it's not a good idea to tell people things that they already know, especially if they're not positive. And most of us pretty much know that we don't like ourselves already. We don't need anybody else's help in that department. But the Rebbe made it so that what you did a minute before and what you did a minute after didn't matter in this minute. In this minute, I could be a Yid. I can connect to Hashem. I can have one moment of normal, one moment of faith, one moment of God, one moment of peace, a mitzvah. And it takes a lot of years to look back and see how wise that was. The whole idea of not trying to change a person completely, not trying to change a person at all, just giving them an opportunity. And if they change themselves. An opportunity for a mitzvah. Mitzvahs are holy. Mitzvahs, like the Rebbe, like a tzaddik, like a holy person, have God inside. Believe it or not, every human being, every Jew, has God inside also. And they have a common language. When a Jew does a mitzvah, there's magic. Sometimes you feel it very acutely, sometimes you don't feel it at all. But when a Jew does a mitzvah, there's a magic. And the Rebbe said to us, just do a mitzvah to Yid. Don't worry about the effect. Don't worry about the future. Don't worry about the big picture. Do a mitzvah, one mitzvah, another mitzvah, another mitzvah. And the mitzvahs, they multiply. They begot more mitzvahs, more mitzvahs, more mitzvahs. They give people more normal, more God, more love, more peace, more center. And the Rebbe was very careful to tell people that no mitzvah is not holy because you aren't. Your mitzvahs are not bad because you think of yourself as a bad person. Your mitzvahs are not bad even if in fact you're a bad person, because there's good in everybody and the mitzvah is good. And the mitzvah is good no matter what. I have a friend who told me a story and told me don't ever repeat the story. So I always repeat the story with the disclosure that I'm not supposed to repeat the story. I heard the story secondhand. He heard it from somebody else. A man came to see the Rebbe in the early 1970s. And he was homosexual. He was gay. And he wanted to go to yeshiva. He wanted to study Torah. He wanted to become religious. But he wasn't going to stop being gay. So he wanted to know if there's any point. Is there any point of me going to yeshiva and studying Torah if I have, from the perspective of Judaism, a gigantic scarlet letter? But he didn't want to go alone. He wanted a witness. So he took along this other man who's the source of the story as I heard it. And he accompanied this, let's say it was 1972, it's a long time ago. And they went into the Rebbe together. This is, you want to be the Rebbe? Answer that question. Huh? Is there any point of me studying yeshiva, becoming religious if I'm a homosexual? And that's not changing. That's how he felt at the time, at least. I don't know the person. I do not know who this person is. And the Rebbe said, a Jew must do as many mitzvahs as he absolutely can. Do your best. He didn't condone it. He didn't condemn it. He said one has nothing to do with the other. You can do a mitzvah. You can study Torah. You can put on film. You have an issue with some issues. Everybody got issues with something. And the Rebbe was able to what's the right word? To unshackle us from our own self-hate, really. From our own attitude of, if I'm not a good Jew, then I'm a bad Jew. So many people feel that way, If I can't do it right, why bother? And the Rebbe redeemed us from that burden. He didn't say it's okay. He said, but the good is good. The good is good. The good is good no matter what. And he gave us this ability to be Jewish to the best of our capabilities. And some of us become very Jewish. More and more, you grow and you grow and you grow and you grow. And it starts with tefillin. It starts because there was a holy rabbi who believed in the sanctity of a mitzvah, who believed in the sanctity of the Jewish soul, and who believed that when a holy mitzvah touches a holy Jewish soul, something happens. Something very real happens. There's a rabbi who has, I think, a brother living in California, or used to live in California. His name is Rabbi Lapin, I think you call him here. He lives in South Africa. And he was a businessman. And he joined the shul in South Africa. South Africa is like England. There's the United Synagogue. Everybody belongs to the shul. If you've ever been to these countries, Friday night everybody goes to shul. Afterwards, the family people go home for Shabbat dinner, and the boys and the girls go to the club. But everybody goes to shul first. And he joined a shul, a congregation like that. There were many, many people. And there was a rabbi who made speeches and shook people's hands, and that was it. So he started to teach. He saw there was he started giving classes. And he was good. He was very good. He was so good that he began to dedicate more and more of his hours to teaching in this congregation. And he's running a business, and he's becoming more and more harried. And at one point he decided to close his business, to liquidate his business, to live on what he has, and become a full-time teacher because he saw the need. Anyway, he wasn't a Lubavitcher, he was a Chabadnik. But he knew that this is the kind of question you need to ask the Lubavitcher Rebbe. So in the 1970s, 50 years ago, he flew from South Africa to New York. He made himself an appointment, and he came in to see the Rebbe. And he tells the Rebbe, I am not a rabbi. I'm a businessman. I became a rabbi because there was an opening, and I took it. And I began to teach one or two people, and now I'm giving many classes to so many people, and I'm contemplating closing my business and becoming a rabbi, a teacher, full-time. What does the Rebbe think? And in typical Rebbe fashion, you can almost hear the Rebbe saying it. The Rebbe said to him in quotes, more business, more rabbanos. More business, more rabbi, more teacher. So he says to the Rebbe, I'm very flattered. I'm very flattered by your opinion of me, but I'm falling apart. So the Rebbe tells him, wonderfully, the Rebbe says to him, the mistake you make is because you envisage an act of kiruv. You envisage an act of embracing a Jew and giving them a mitzvah, giving them a vateda, giving them a Jewish experience, like a chemical reaction. Chemical reactions, every chemical is stable, right? If chemicals weren't stable, it would be even crazier than it is, right? Chemicals are stable. When you mix two chemicals, they go crazy, yeah? And then they become normal. It takes a little while, they react, they interface, and they have a new normal. And then they sit there till you mix them again. In your mind, the Rebbe says to him, meeting a Jew and doing something Jewish is a chemical reaction. So there is a moment of energy, there's a moment of transition, and then there's a new stable, new normal. The Rebbe says when a Jew touches a Jew, it's not a chemical reaction. It's a nuclear reaction. And it has ripples that go on and on. The more time that passes, the more effect it has. So you do not appreciate the extent of your influence, of your reach, of your success, of your bracha. I'm going to share two more thoughts and then we'll interrupt, we'll go outside and we'll do whatever we have to do. Lubavitch is an old Hasidic movement. You know that? It's a very old Hasidic movement. And if you would meet Chabadniks from 100 years ago, you would believe that they're not only different than the Chabadniks of today, that the antithesis, they're 180 degrees opposite the Chabadniks of today in 1,000 ways. I can't even begin to tell you. And the credit for that goes to the previous Rebbe, who came to this country 86 years ago, and the Rebbe, who continued this revolution. And one of the examples of that was the place, how do I say this in English, of bittul. In Hasidic tradition, a person is supposed to be humble. In Hasidic tradition, a person is not supposed to be busy with himself. Anyway, this is a story with the Rebbe and humility that I think explains to you his unique approach. A boy was a yeshiva. A boy, he was in his 20s. He was in yeshiva, and this goes back to the 60s and the 50s. Brilliant, very smart. So smart that he was head and shoulders above his friends, who were not slouches either. He was very intelligent. And he studied the whole Shas, the whole Talmud, which is an extraordinary achievement for a young man. The problem was he knew it. He knew how bright he was, and he knew how learned he was, and he knew how superior he was to his friends. And he made the terrible mistake of letting them know that he knew it. Well, they let him know that that's not good. And they didn't let him know with kind words, they let him know with very, very, what's the word? Certain terms. Anyway, he got the message that he's full of himself. He was. And he went to see the Rebbe in Yechidus, in a private meeting, and he told the Rebbe that I'm finally ready to admit that I'm a little arrogant, just a little bit. I'm full of myself. In our culture, we say, I stink, you couldn't be next to me, you smelled so bad. So he goes into the Rebbe, and he tells the Rebbe, I need help getting past my ego, appreciating the fact that the blessings that I have come from God, my successes are not my own. If my friends had the mind I had, they'd know better than I do. I got to get over myself. And the Rebbe said to him in Yiddish, also classic Rebbe, Nu, Yiddish, Soll Gott sein mit was? You understand Yiddish? Nu. Whatever you think of yourself, be. The Rebbe didn't talk him down from his ego. He talked him up to his ego. You think you're brilliant? Be brilliant. You think you're smarter than everybody else? Be smarter than everybody else. You think you're the holiest roll in the world? Roll in the holy. Just be whatever you think. Think as highly as yourself as you wish, and then challenge yourself to be what you think. Rabbi said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to continue this Farbrengen. This is the formal part, that'll be the informal part. I want to finish with this simple idea. Dr. Jonathan Sachs, who was unfortunately Olav Shalom, said very famously that great leaders get people to believe in themselves. Leaders get people to believe in them. Great leaders get people to believe in themselves. Leaders create followers. Great leaders create leaders. The Rebbe took very ordinary people, really, and he gave them a mandate. And the mandate was do something. And know that the little bit that you do is not a chemical reaction, it's a nuclear reaction. The little bit that you do will have ripples and ripples and ripples, and you will not be able to count the number of fruit that will grow from the trees that you succeed in planting. You think you're planting 1 tree or 2 trees or 3 trees. And what's interesting about the Rebbe, it's an open field. The Rebbe empowered every Jew to be a leader. You just have to decide that you want it. You have to just decide that this is important enough for you, not just to be a taker but a giver. And all of us who are in Chabad know that when we give, well, we're giving back to ourselves and to our families and to our children. It's 10-fold, it's 100-fold, and 1,000-fold. The Rebbe did us the biggest favor. Anybody, the Rebbe said, you want to be a shliach? Go ahead. You want to be a Chabadnik? Go ahead. Just do. Find a space. The world is still big enough. Find a hole, find a niche. They have today all over the world now ambassadors for mitzvahs. People, my son, God bless him, he's a shliach and it's near Philadelphia. Before Pesach, his community was going around handing out matzahs. The people who are handing out the matzahs probably don't even know you're not supposed to eat bread on Pesach. But they know you're supposed to have matzah, so they can give matzah to another person. Anybody can be an ambassador for mitzvahs. And when you give, you get many, many fold. I need to finish with a story. There was a great tzaddik whose name was Rebbe Ruzhin. Okay, frame of reference. He passed away in 1851. He died 1851. That's a long time ago. He was a very holy man. Anyway, he had a follower who was very poor, had a large family, many children to marry off. And of course, in those days, if you couldn't pay for a wedding, you couldn't have a chassan for your daughters or a kala for your sons. And he was eating himself up, and his wife was beating him up. So it was a great combination. That's the 1-2 punch for those who don't know. And he would say to his wife, we would get the money for the weddings. And his wife would say, you have an uncle in Vienna, you have an uncle in Vienna. He had an uncle in Vienna. Vienna was a modern city, a secular town. Then, his uncle was not a religious man, lived alone, never got married, had no children, had tons of geld. And he really looked down at his nephew. His nephew was a schlepper, His nephew was one of those, Ustjud, as they said before the Holocaust. Anyway, his wife said, go to see your uncle. He said, nah, my uncle hates me. He's gonna make fun of me. She said, okay, he'll make fun of you and he'll give you a check. It's worth it. You need to marry off your children. This conversation went on for a few years. And one day she found, okay, I'm going, ich fahre zum Vetter. I'm going to my uncle. So the family was very excited. They bought him a new suitcase and they got him some money for the trip and some food and some clothes. They dressed him all up and he's gone his way to see his uncle. He comes to the door of his home and he puts his hand in the mezuzah. He stops and he thinks and he puts down the suitcase and says, I'm not going. Oh, what do you mean not going? So he says, wer sagt mein Vetter lebt? Und als lebt, wer sagt, dass hat Geld? Und als hat Geld, wer sagt, will geben? Aber der Rebbe lebt. Und hat Geld. Und will geben. Which means, who knows if my uncle is still alive? Maybe he died. And if he's alive, maybe he lost his money. And even if he's alive and he has his money, maybe he doesn't want to give it to me. But God is alive. And God's rich. And he wants to give. And he's not going. Anyway, don't ask what happened after that. His wife went ballistic. His children stopped talking to him, or they talked to him non-stop. And the story is a little while after he gets a knock on the door, an officer of the I guess that's the Galician army, comes through and he says, listen, I'm going to the front. I cannot trust anybody. But you, I know from childhood, I trust you. I'm leaving you an enormous amount of money, like 15,000 ruble or whatever, zlotus. If I'm not back in 90 days, he tells him, it means I was killed. And the money's yours. If I'm back in 90 days, you'll give it to me back. Fine. He puts the money away, 90 days turns into 180 days and 270 days, and his wife says, take the money. He says, not mine. Take the money. He said he doesn't come back in 90 days. It means he's dead. It's not my money. I'm not touching it. So there's another argument. Anyway, after a long, long discussion, he says, I'm going to see the Rebbe, the holy Ruzhin Rebbe, the great tzaddik of Ruzhin. He comes to the shtetl where he lived, and he made an appointment to see his Rebbe. He walks through the threshold of his Rebbe's door. Before he had a chance to say a word, the Rebbe looks up at him with the most beautiful eyes and says to him in Yiddish, Der Rebbe lebt und hat Geld und hat gegeben. God Almighty is alive and he's got plenty of money and he gave some to you. I give all of us a bracha. God Almighty is alive, and He has a lot more than money. He has health, and He even has wisdom, and He even has normal, and He even has peace. And Hashem should bless each one of us, that He should give us all these wonderful gifts. And when we see them and we experience them, we should celebrate them, and we should say thank you. God loves thank you, and you give Him a thank you, get another check. Okay, good evening to all of you. Thank you for listening.